If you've ever been in a room where everyone is glued to a game and you feel absolutely nothing, you know how strange that can feel. Not boredom, exactly. More like everyone else stepped into something, and you're still standing outside it. Someone's yelling at the screen. Someone's pacing. Someone's whole mood is changing because a team scored or didn't. And you're just there, not judging it, not trying to be different, just not feeling what they're feeling. If that's you, you've probably had those small moments where it becomes obvious. At work, when everyone's talking about the match and you've got nothing to say. When someone asks, "Did you watch it?" and you forgot it was even on. When the room gets louder and louder, and part of you almost wishes you could join in, but nothing in you really moves. And people notice that. They usually assume it means something simple, that you're detached, low energy, hard to impress, like not caring about sports must mean you're missing some basic part of being human. But most of the time, that's not what it is. Because for a lot of people, not caring about sports isn't really about sports. It's about what feels real enough to deserve your emotion. For some people, sports do that almost instantly. There's tension, suspense, relief, loyalty, a side to be on, a story that keeps moving, a reason to care at the same time as everyone else. For a few hours, a room full of strangers can feel connected without having to say much. That's a powerful thing. Sports give people a way to feel something together, and for the people who love it, that feeling is real. They're not pretending. They're not shallow. The game gives them energy, focus, release. It lets them step into a shared emotional world. But if you don't care about sports, that whole thing may just not happen inside you in the same way. You can understand why other people enjoy it. You can like the atmosphere. You can even enjoy being around people who are into it. But the game itself still doesn't reach you. It doesn't pull anything real out of you. That's the part people get wrong. They see no interest and assume no depth. But a lot of people who feel flat towards sports are not flat people at all. They feel things deeply. Just somewhere else, in music, in films, in work they care about, in conversations that actually go somewhere, in relationships, in ideas they can't stop thinking about, in something they're building quietly that matters to them more than anyone realizes. That's why someone can look half asleep during a game and come fully alive the second the conversation turns to something that actually touches them. So this usually isn't about having less passion. It's about what your passion answers to. And here's where it gets more interesting. A lot of people think this is just a preference, like not liking a certain food or not being into a certain kind of music. But for many people, it goes deeper than taste. Some people are naturally open to group emotion. If the room gets tense, they feel it. If everyone jumps up at once, something in them jumps too. If the group cares, they start caring. Sports fit that system perfectly. Other people have more distance there, not because they're cold, because their mind doesn't automatically turn shared emotion into personal emotion. It doesn't go, everyone cares, so now I care too. It waits. It looks for something closer than that, something that feels personal, something they can enter for real, not just witness from across the room. And once you see that, a lot of little things start to make sense. Why some people fake just enough interest to avoid seeming rude. Why they remember a team name the way they remember a coworker's dog's name. Not because they care, but because it helps socially. Why they can sit through an entire game and still feel more in the conversation afterward than in anything that happened on the screen. Why a room full of excitement can sometimes make them feel more alone, not less. And for some people, that feeling didn't start in adulthood. Sports culture doesn't feel neutral to everybody. Maybe it was always the loudest people in the room. Maybe it felt aggressive, performative, or full of rules you were somehow supposed to already know. Maybe you were the kid in gym class who didn't get the obsession, laughed along, and learned pretty quickly that pretending interest made life easier. So later on, not caring isn't always just indifference. Sometimes there's history in it, a quiet sense that this world was never fully yours. And even when there's no backstory, there's usually still a pattern. People who don't care much about sports are often slower to hand their emotions over to something just because it matters socially. What moves them tends to be more personal than that. Something they chose, something they lived, something that asks something real of them. That's why they can seem quiet in one setting and intense in another. They may have nothing to say during the game, then stay up until 2 in the morning talking about music, a memory, a relationship, or a problem they can't let go of. That's not less feeling. It just gets activated differently. And that's why sports fans and non-sports people can misunderstand each other so easily. One person feels connected by joining the same story as everyone else. The other only really feels something when it becomes personal enough to matter on its own. Neither one is wrong. They're just moved by different things. So if you've never understood why people care so much about sports, it probably doesn't mean you're missing something. It probably means your mind is more selective about what gets real emotion from you, and less willing to borrow meaning just because a crowd is offering it. And once you see that, a lot of your own reactions stop looking random. Why you could never fake the excitement for very long. Why sports talk always felt slightly strange to you, even when you knew other people meant every word. Why some forms of belonging pull other people in so easily and leave you completely still. It was never just a small preference. It was a clue about how you connect, what actually reaches you, and what your mind refuses to care about just because everyone else does. If this explains something for you, there's more to uncover.